Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to share with you how to stop itchy back. I know a lot of you guys deal with this unbearable itch between your shoulder blades. It can be tough to reach, and once you start scratching, feels so good, but the itch never goes away. Believe it or not, this isn't actually a primary skin problem, but rather it is a problem with your nerves. The medical term for this is Notalgia Paresthetica, unbearable itch between the shoulder blades, usually starting kind of more so on one side of your spinal column on the back, but it can eventually spread to involve a wider area, including extending beyond your shoulder blades to your upper back. When I say the itch of this condition is unbearable, I'm not exaggerating it. The poet Shel Silverstein has an entire poem dedicated to Notalgia Paresthetica. It's called The Unscratchable Itch. Hold your breath and scratch and pray, only just an inch away. That captures Notalgia Paresthetica to a T. Why the heck does this happen? The nerves that course through the skin on your back are actually very susceptible to getting squeezed and stretched. And when that happens, they become inflamed and they release little chemicals that lead to the sensation of itch. This is not a skin problem per se, in that you don't see a rash that then is itchy, but rather it is an itch that leads you to scratch. Now, with scratching and rubbing the skin to alleviate the symptom of itch, you can actually develop secondary skin changes like scratch marks, even scars, thickening of the skin, hyperpigmentation, hypopigmentation, meaning loss of color. You can get secondary little skin infections from scratching and digging. The nerves that supply sensation to the skin of the back, they come out of the spinal cord and they course through a very long route through the thick muscles of the back, and they come out at a right angle to innervate the skin. And that right angle makes them very vulnerable to stretching and compression. Notalgia paresthetica is a nerve problem. It's a neuropathy, and it can come after any type of injury to the back. It's often seen in people who have a herniated disc or a slip disc. Let me know in the comments if you have ever experienced the misery that is shingles. Shingles is a very uncomfortable, blistering rash caused by a virus, and it can involve the skin of the back. And it's a nerve problem related to a virus. As it heals and goes away, the nerves can be left frazzled, and that can trigger symptoms related to notalgia paresthetica. People can develop notalgia paresthetica after a really bad sunburn to the back because the skin there gets injured, it gets inflamed as a result of the UV damage, and that little innocent bystander cutaneous nerve gets inflamed, and that can set off notalgia paresthetica. Some people develop a type of spinal cord injury related to compression. It's called myelopathy, and that too is associated with the development of notalgia paresthetica. And some people have a condition called small fiber neuropathy that can likewise leave those little cutaneous nerves in the back vulnerable to getting excited and releasing those itch signals. It's not uncommon for notalgia paresthetica to start after intense exercise that leaves your muscles in your back sore. Maybe you haven't been sedentary for a long time and this is the first time you have worked out in a while. You go too hard, you overexert yourself, you're left stiff, sore. That actually might inflame those little nerves and lead to this problem. For some people, the itch sensation is intermittent, whereas for other people, it is continuous. You're constantly itchy there. The sensation of itch is not actually relieved by scratching or rubbing the skin. However, scratching and rubbing leads to immense pleasure. And so people scratch, they rub, but it really actually does not alleviate the itch. In fact, it makes the itch worse. Anytime you have itch, whether it be on your back or elsewhere, scratching is never the answer. But it's a behavior that is almost second nature and is very hard to stop. What scratching does is disrupt the skin barrier and agitate those nerves further, making them even more likely to persistently be inflamed and releasing those itch signals. It really can cause persistent itch to scratch. It's the itch-scratch cycle. You don't want to feed that cycle. This usually starts just in a small spot on one side of the spine in between the shoulders, but as it persists, the surrounding skin becomes involved. It can spread to involve both shoulders and the upper back. A lot of people have more than just issues with itch. They also develop other sensory changes. It can be accompanied by a burning sensation or the feeling of hot or cold, tingling, almost like something is crawling on your skin, unbelievable itch that may come and go. and often gets worse at night, but you also have the sensation of something crawling on your back, feel like there's tingling. Can you imagine how miserable that is? Notalgia paresthetica can be accompanied by this sensation that there is something on your back there, like a foreign body sensation. It really can have a lot of different symptoms that can be very stressful to cope with. Any skin condition where there is itch, guess what? It's gonna get worse as soon as you go to sleep. We don't know entirely why this happens. Maybe because water loss out of the skin is greater at night, maybe because cutaneous blood flow increases at night, bringing in more warmth and release of itch signals, but itch gets much worse at night for the majority of people, and it disrupts your sleep. That is probably one of the most serious aspects of itch, and something that is not taken seriously enough. I don't think the majority of people out there realize how debilitating itch is. The same nerve types that signal pain signal itch. What happens with itch is that a person is aroused from sleep to scratch. As your sleep quality suffers, the next day you are a lot more stressed out. And guess what also feeds itch? Stress. Poor sleep and the stress make you more likely to scratch. That also further intensifies the itch sensation and makes it last longer. So this is actually a very vicious cycle when it comes to any type of skin condition where there is itch. It all feeds back to itch and intensifies the itch long term. The nerve problem causes a symptom in the skin, and the behavior, which you can't help, is to scratch. The scratching can lead to skin problems: hyperpigmentation, eczema, skin thickening, hypopigmentation, scars, skin infections. And for a lot of people who rub and scratch the skin enough, they can develop a skin condition known as macular amyloidosis. Basically, these skin cells get so inflamed it kind of leaks stuff out into the skin. You get these patches of dark, thickened skin that on side angle have almost a rippled appearance. It's called macular amyloid. And a lot of people who have notalgia paresthetica, they end up developing macular amyloidosis on top. Especially if you're someone who reaches for a back scratcher, or you take your towel and you do like this to scratch the back. That's something that a lot of people with notalgia paresthetica will end up doing, but it actually not only feeds the itch pathway to persist, but then it can lead to changes in the skin where you have thickening, discoloration. So how do you figure out that this is what is going on? It's clear from the history in most cases that the patient is dealing with notalgia paresthetica. People who have a history of back injury, spinal symptoms, depending on what other symptoms you're having, your doctor may order some imaging tests like an X-ray, a CT scan, an MRI to look for things like a slip disc or degeneration in the vertebrae, the bones that make up your spine. But that isn't necessarily always warranted. All right, now that you understand this condition, you understand that at its root, the root cause is not necessarily a skin problem, but rather a nerve problem. How the heck do you get this to go away? It's very challenging. Now that you understand the scratching behavior feeds it, you have to do your best to not scratch. But how do you get rid of that debilitating itch sensation? One way, and you may need to approach it in a multimodal fashion, but one way that can get people some relief is to use a cream that has the ingredient capsaicin. Capsaicin comes from chili peppers. The way capsaicin works is to deplete the little nerve endings in the skin of their chemicals that would otherwise be released and aggravate itch. But a word of warning, capsaicin burns when you put it on. It's supposed to, and it can cause the skin to get very red because it triggers vasodilation. Once all of the neurochemicals are released, then you get a period of time of relief. However, you have to keep applying this to the skin in order to kind of maintain the control. And the symptoms often recur. So this is not a cure. It's just meant to give you some symptomatic relief and hopefully aid in breaking that itch scratch cycle. Another approach is to get lotions that are marketed as cooling lotions. Cooling lotions typically have menthol. Now, in a lot of my videos, I say, oh, you should avoid menthol. It's fragrance and it's a common allergen. But this is a case for menthol because it definitely can provide some symptomatic relief. It has a cooling effect on the skin and it can help to distract those itch nerves. I recommend applying these cooling lotions to the skin chilled. So put them in your refrigerator, let them get chilled, and apply them to the skin. skin cold. That really likewise can amplify the cooling effect on the skin and get you some better, more sustained relief. There are also lotions and creams that you can buy from the store that have anesthetics in them. Some of them have lidocaine, others have an anesthetic called Pramoxine. It can help to give you some relief from the itch. There are also topical steroids. I'm a fan of prescribing a steroid ointment to people who have a lot of itch, especially if they have developed the signs of skin damage from the scratching, like if they have an overlying eczema, or maybe they're starting to develop signs of macular amyloidosis. A steroid ointment that is prescription only can definitely help silence those itch signals, calm down the inflammation in the skin, and help the patient get some relief and help with healing. Speaking of prescription, another type of medication that can be helpful for people whose quality of life has been seriously negatively impacted by this, like it's disrupting your sleep to a point where you need something more intense. There's a prescription medication called amitriptyline. It has a sedating property. It makes you sleepy and helps you sleep. Amitriptyline taken at night is not only helpful for sleep, but it also addresses the neuropathic component of Notalgia Paresthetica. It soothes the nerves and helps with the neuropathic component of itch. You know, a lot of patients, as a side note, who have certain chronic pain conditions are prescribed amitriptyline. The same little nerves that contribute to those types of pain, because pain is very complex, those same types of nerves are also playing a role in itch. But it may not be right for everyone. There are side effects. It is sedating, so we have to be careful in certain vulnerable populations. There's also medications like gabapentin or pregabalin. These likewise soothe the nerves, but they do have some side effects that need to be monitored. So that might be right for you. It's prescription only, or it may not be right for you, something that your doctor may discuss further. Transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, TENS unit, can help soothe those nerves as well. A lot of derms try Botox, botulinum toxin injections. Everyone thinks of Botox for wrinkles, but it's actually a useful tool for a lot of other stuff, a lot of medical conditions, including this. Some people do get relief with Botox injections for Notalgia Paresthetica. Double-blind trials, however, suggest it's not effective. So it's not like a go-to, in my opinion. It can, for the patient, it can be very expensive depending on, where you live and that sort of thing. So, I mean, to me, in my experience, I don't find that it is any more effective than some of the other things that we have already mentioned here. Now, if you have a slip disc problem in your spine, surgical decompression to address that can end up getting the patient symptomatic relief from the Notalgia Paresthetica. So those are all kind of medications or creams and lotions and things that are largely going to address the itch. But the other thing that you need to try and do, get some physical therapy in with the upper back. Because if you think about it, the muscles around the back, as long as they continue to compress those little nerves or put undue traction on them, it's going to feed this problem. So there are some very simple and effective stretching exercises that you can do on a daily basis to loosen up the muscles of the back that will ultimately support improvement of this condition. That, in conjunction with the other things that we talked about that help you to break the itch scratch cycle, the physical therapy can really help a lot. Crossing your arms and just like bending forward to get a good stretch of the upper back, or holding your hands by your sides, lifting your shoulders and kind of rotating them forward and backward. Also, just simply rotating your upper body from left to right, you can get some good stretching in the upper back. And then the other thing that you can do in addition to these exercises is massage. Massage of the back, loosening up the muscles, helping them to relax. It can really pay off. Small steps to getting you relief. That, combined with the exercises, combined with these topicals that we talked about to break the itch scratch cycle, and if necessary, the prescription medications to help you sleep and to help soothe those nerves, those things all together can really put you on a path to healing. This condition can improve, but if left unaddressed, untreated, it can get much, much worse, and you can develop skin changes on top. So that's what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to nip it in the bud as soon as possible. The longer it persists, the more difficult it is to get it to go away. That's the case with anything related to the nerves, whether it be a pain condition or an itch condition. The longer it persists untreated, unaddressed, the harder it's going to be to get relief. So let's not let it get to that point. Hopefully you're catching this video early enough in your journey with back itch, Notalgia Paresthetica, that these tips can really help you out long term. All right, guys, that is everything I wanted to chat with you guys about today on stopping itchy back, Notalgia Paresthetica. Let me know in the comments, is this something that you deal with? I really hope that this video was of help to you. On the end slide, I'm going to put one of my recent videos all about how to smooth the skin on the body, the best ingredients for dry, rough skin texture. So check that out, especially if you're dealing with dry, itchy skin on the body. I give a lot of good tips in that one. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.